The person who quotes Marcus Aurelius over coffee or uses a lot of big words is not the smartest person in the room. The person who knows when to speak and when to stay quiet will win a fight. Quiet the person who can leave without making a scene, and keep the peace like Stoics teach us that real people pick their fights with purpose and respect. Being wise doesn't need to be loud or show off. Being smart doesn't mean knowing everything. It means knowing what not to do. Smart people aren't just, they are seeking information and calming down. They know that not all things deserve their attention, and not all comments are worth making. Answer: not every room is worth going into, and more importantly, not every relationship should have a place in their mind. This movie isn't about being smart, or it's not about impressing other people. It's about having real wisdom that helps you carry. If you're ready, you can sleep soundly at night and feel calm and sure of yourself. If you want to feel lighter, simpler, and more in charge in your life, you're on the right track. Click subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's start these 10 things smart people don't do and how they might change your life. 1. They stay away from pointless fights because smart people stay away from pointless. Not because they're inactive, but because they've learned the hard way that most people don't want to argue. Arguments are only about ego and not about the truth. You finally understand that the person yelling across the table isn't trying to understand you. They're just trying to win. And if you give in, you'll lose more than just time. You'll also lose your peace, your energy, and your emotions. Being stable for someone who was never going to listen to you in the first place, Stoicism gives you a sharp, almost surgical idea here that you don't have to go to every, you're welcome to the fight. And it's not just about picking peace over war. It's about picking truth over chaos. I had a bird that loved this, confrontation. Every team meeting turned into a fight, even over small ideas turned into arguments. At first, I thought I had to defend myself to show that wasn't wrong, but the more I did, the more tired I got, so I stopped. He was criticized for not only what he said, but also why he said it. Weren't about the subject. They were sneaky power plays meant to make people angry and make their point. Dominance. That's when things changed. I stopped answering every challenge and let he should have the last word, not because he was right, but because I didn't have anything to say. Gain by responding, something unexpected happened, and the situation changed when he lost control of the game he was trying to play because of this. From a psychological point of view, people who fight all the time are often feeling unsafe and want to be in charge because they don't feel in charge, and they mix up authority and respect. Smart people, especially those who know about the Stoic theory, know better. They understand that control isn't about being stronger than other people, it's about controlling them. Not arguing doesn't mean you're weak or unable. It means you want to be fair. You've done the math, figured out how much it will cost to engage, and peace is more important than being smart. So smart people don't have to be right in every talk. They need to be calm and focused, without letting other people's feelings get in the way. To pull them in, that's not avoiding. That's discipline. It's a quiet power that's what Stoicism is all about. Letting go of the noise and moving forward with focus. Surviving the world while remaining calm in it. And 2, they don't go into too much detail. Themselves, they feel a draining kind of worry from giving too many reasons for why you did something or said no, or why your life is the way it is, doesn't follow the plan that other people were expecting. A lot of people do this without noticing it. It's driven by an underlying need to be liked, understood, or at least they won't be judged too harshly, but smart people learn to fight this urge because they know that giving yourself to the wrong people doesn't help you understand. It makes you want to control them. The more you explain your choice, the more room you give others to question it and change it. If you believe it or find flaws in it, this behavior comes from a deep psychological need. For outside approval when you're not sure or haven't fully taken responsibility for When you make choices inside yourself, you look for proof from the outside, but the Stoic mind sees. This is just a trick, because the truth comes out, no matter how well you explain it. There will always be someone who doesn't get it and judges you anyway. Your words to fit what they think. You can't live easily if you're always controlling other people. The idea that Stoicism teaches is that peace comes from within, not from Epictetus said, if you want to get better, be happy with being thought of. Take that in. The goal is not to be seen as right, but to be being honest with yourself is more important to clever people than getting approval from others. I want you to know that mystery is not a sign of weakness. Let people guess and wonder, because once you stop, when you stop over-explaining, your decisions start to speak for themselves. And that silence has a more confident, restrained tone to it. Power than any long argument could ever have. 3. They don't want to be the loudest. There is something tiring about always having to be heard in the room. That need is like armor that people wear, filling every void by talking over others to make sure they get their point across. Fills the room with what at first glance seems like confidence or even leadership is often hidden deep insecurity that the person who speaks out the biggest isn't showing. People who are smart and have strong beliefs are often the ones who are most afraid of being ignored. Know this. They've learned that raising money doesn't really help. Your voice is often the most powerful tool you have for making a statement. Presence is the person who doesn't have to fight for attention. Picture a meeting where one person talks all the time, making every point into a show, while another hears quietly and makes notes in their head so that the loud one can be remembered right away. But the quiet person who talks last is usually the one who gets things done. It's not by mistake that they are so calm and often have the clearest insights. Self-mastery. Smart people know how important it is to observe. Not being heard is not the same as being empty. It's just time to think and understand. To react from a clear place instead of on impulse, the need to dominate talks often do so because they have a weak sense of who they are. Constantly talk are often trying to prove how smart they are right now, so that the sound of their own words will drown out their doubts. Stoic philosophy gives people a very different way. The Stoics thought that silence was good for a clear mind if you are sure of your beliefs, sure of your thinking, and not feeling the need to. If you can show yourself, you'll naturally be calm, and you'll listen not because you have nothing to lose. You don't have to say everything, but that doesn't mean you have to stay. Being quiet or never speaking up means being careful about what you say. When it counts, and most of all, letting your behavior speak for itself in a world. When everyone is screaming to be heard, stillness is a powerful thing. Stoics don't try to get attention. Instead, they earn the respect of smart people. They've already mastered the most important thing, so there's no need to rule the room. Themselves. And once you've mastered that volume, your calm won't matter anymore. Says more than any sound could. 4. They stay away from people who drain. They're tired in a way that doesn't show up in their bodies. Sets in your spirit. And it's not from working too much or not getting enough sleep caused by people who don't scream or fight, but drain you slowly by being negative all the time and feeling guilty or making every moment about. They learn early on to spot this drain because they are smart. They learn that their energy is not open for anyone to take, and over time, they learn to protect it like it's holy because it is. For example, Anna is a wise, strong woman in her 50s who had always been the strong one in the family, and her younger sister. She called almost every day, but not to talk, but to complain about her work. At first, Anna listened carefully as she talked about her ex-husband, the dog next door, and even the weather, offered help, advice, and even money at times. But the routine never changed. She took more than Anna gave, so it was never enough. When Anna asked for fewer calls or more positivity to set limits, Melissa charged. This emotional tug-of-war started to hurt her because she thought he was selfish for leaving her. Anna's health got worse. She had trouble sleeping and her temper ran out. It felt like someone had pulled a thread from the cloth of her well-being every time they talked. When she tried something, she had just started to look into Stoic philosophies. A quote from Marcus Aurelius stuck with her. "You don't have..." She knew she didn't need to make this into something that would make you angry. Didn't have to fix Melissa and keep giving up things to show how much she loved her. What she did have to do was to keep her energy safe for her own peace and calm. So she did something very odd. She made the choice not to cut Melissa off, but she did step back and limit calls. She didn't feel rushed to answer, and most importantly, she let go of the shame. Real love isn't about being available all the time. It's about being available to each other. Anna began to breathe again, and she read more, walked more, and smiled more. The peace came back not because Melissa changed, but because Anna did. Smart people know that not everyone should be able to see inside your mind and heart. You can care deeply about others. You can love someone and keep yourself safe at the same time. They are in chaos, which is not cold, it's truth, which is Stoicism. Motion 5. They don't brag. There's a thin line between being sure of yourself and pay is important, and smart people know exactly where it lies. They've learned that people who are always bragging about their successes, money, or smarts aren't really speaking from a place of strength more. Most of the time, they're trying to tell themselves that bragging isn't a sign of success but of insecurity. When someone feels the need to show something in public, it's usually because of the Stoics knew for a long time that people had a greater fear that they weren't enough on the inside. Before modern psychology, they thought that real power doesn't make a fuss. It moves invisibly. David shows self-control and lets the results talk louder than his ego ever could. A financial advisor in his early 60s who had quietly built a good life for himself, marked not by fancy cars or dropping names, but by being in a room full of pros. At first, you wouldn't even notice him because he wasn't loud enough or self-promotion, but when he spoke, people paid attention not because he showed off his qualifications or read off his client list. However, because his words were cool, thoughtful, and grounded, other people at the table would show David's successes like trophies. But he didn't do that. He asked questions. The fact that he listened and was the person everyone trusted the most made David was different because he had self-assurance that wasn't based on tricks, but on what he had done. The Stoic kind of bragging, on the other hand, comes from experience and thought. It wants praise before giving value because it has a desperate need for attention. Smart people who have been through hard times, loss, and self-reflection know that a big mouth can hide a lot. A quiet void. They don't need to list their wins because they're not playing for praise. They're playing for meaning. In a psychic sense, bragging makes people feel distant. It pushes them away. Instead of pulling them in, it makes them compare and tells them in a subtle way that they're less. But humility makes it easier for people to connect with each other. Stoicism isn't about hiding who you are. It's about making other people feel safe enough to share their own stories. Being able to control the urge to show that when you live your life according to your values, it becomes the proof that you don't need to sell it. That's the quiet power of being smart. People can let their silence build trust, and their deeds can do the same. Speak things that words could never say. If you like these ideas, please let me know. Say yes below to let me know. Your thoughts are important to me, and I'd love to hear them. From U6, they don't complain without doing anything, complaining without taking action, is one of the most subtle ways to hurt yourself. It gives the impression of action that makes it look like something is being done when it's really just a feeling of helplessness. A lot of people talk about it's not fair that other people are failing or that life isn't going as planned. Work together, but nothing changes because the words end at expression. No steps are taken forward and nothing is changed. It turns into a frustrating loop. Repeated complaints. Smart people learn to spot this early and break. They understand the loop, not because they're heartless or cold, that you only have so much energy, and whining uses it up quickly. People who complain all the time often want to be heard and understood in their pain, which is a real need. But if nothing is done, it turns into a crutch over time. It feeds the ego while, when you starve your will, that's where Stoicism gets tough. You can feel pain, but what counts is how you deal with it. A Stoic doesn't hide their pain, they study it. If they ask the question that changes everything, "Can I do this?" This question acts as a filter. If the answer is no, the issue ends there. The question has not been practiced. If the answer is yes, the next question will be asked. Obviously, what can I do about it? This is how smart people think. They don't try to hide their feelings, but they also don't dwell on them either. They know that talking in the right way is not a place to go, but a sign that tells you where the pressure is and where the imbalance lives. But once it's brought up, you're responsible for it. Stoicism says that restraint leads to clarity. You don't talk about what's, and if things keep going wrong, you decide what to do next. If that doesn't work, you move on. With respect, whining without doing anything is just noise. Smart people are led by, with cool and reason, decide whether to act or let go. That's what gives their appearance weight, not what they say, but how they live it. 7. They don't share too many ideas. There's a small risk in sharing too much. Much too soon, especially when it comes to your goals, and it often doesn't feel dangerous. It's even fun to talk about a new project, a job change, or a personal one. What starts out as excitement can quickly turn into pressure, criticism, and thoughts that you didn't ask for. The more people know about your plans, the more they expect, and the worse it gets, the more you feel like you have to succeed not for yourself, but for their approval. Smart people know this. This psychological trick, they've learned that telling people about plans before they're ready doesn't work. To hold people accountable, it leads to interference, and that interference leads to oversharing, can make it hard to concentrate. It usually comes from a feeling of not being safe. It's a quiet cry for approval when you talk about your goals. It's called desire. Loud, so that other people will support you and believe in you. This will make it feel more real. But Stoic advice tells us the opposite. It reminds us that approval. When you get praise before the work is done, it can slow you down. You feel like you've accomplished something before you actually have. That short-term boost in confidence often makes you feel less rushed to act, so you talk more and don't do as much. When problems do arise, the same people who were reserved, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, said not to ask questions before you're ready to answer them. Not because praise is bad, but because it takes attention away from they thought that greatness is something you can grow by being alone and quiet. The noise of other people's thoughts, when you work quietly, you build a base that doesn't shake when other people don't get that your drive comes from inside you, not outside. Because of this, smart people tend to keep their ideas secret. To keep it secret, but because they respected the process for their growth and peace. They didn't push the progress because they knew that real progress doesn't need a spotlight. Instead, it needs discipline and room. Something much stronger than any statement could be found in that quiet promise of patience. Real stoicism means making changes that last on your own terms. That's not loud stoicism. But very good at 8, they stay away from people who hurt someone who doesn't respect limits in a way that doesn't leave bruises but wears away at them over time. Your sense of self when someone keeps crossing your limits. They might laugh it off, or call it a phase, fun of it, or act like you don't notice. But over time it makes your comfort yourself, that your space and morals aren't being respected smart. It doesn't last long, because people know that the people around you have more of an effect on you than just your time. Affect your thoughts, your energy, and your growth, and if someone crosses the lines you've set, showing you exactly who they are, no matter how quietly. Think of someone who rejects your no as negotiable, who shows up without being asked and forces you to promises to do something or says something you told them to stop. At first it may not seem dangerous, but breaking the rules over and over again isn't a mistake. It's statements like these are sneaky ways for them to test how much of themselves you're willing to give up before you. Being silent means being clear about whether to speak up or give up. Seneca told us to only hang out with people who make us feel better and who help our virtues, don't push us to our psychological limits. People who don't respect limits often want power, whether they are aware of it or not. They want to force others to do what they want. Smart, self-respecting people don't think about how important they are, but others do. When you explain or discuss where the lines are, they don't try to fix the other person. They just leave. Because they know that acting disrespectfully over and over again isn't a mistake. It's a habit. Being smart about how you spend your time and energy is not selfish. It's how you stay healthy. And your pride when someone breaks your rules, people who are smart don't fight. Instead, they walk quietly, firmly, and without regret. How you keep your power and peace. If you like these ideas, please share them. Me know by leaving a yes below. Your thoughts are important to me, and I'd love to hear them. From your 9, they avoid always having to be right. The need to always be. Right often comes from an underlying need to be seen as smart, admired, or in charge. But the truth is, people who are always trying to make a point never win. It may feel like a win at the time, but it leaves smart people hide behind smashed egos, strained relationships, and an image that turns people off. They know that being right isn't always the best thing to do and choose a different road. The most important thing in the room is sometimes being nice, being quiet, or it's much more powerful to let other people have their own views. This is from the life of Fred Rogers, who was better known as Mr. Rogers to many people. The man with the soft voice and knitted sweaters was a man with strong morals who was easy to outer, could fight with most people in the room if he wanted to. He was smart and well-educated and well-spoken, but what made him stand out wasn't his ability to correct others. It was his unwillingness to do so. In talks and conversations, he stuck up for his gentle view even when people didn't agree with him or thought it was silly. He never fought to be right. Instead, he listened and answered with calm, and more than Fred Rogers once said, he showed respect for everything, even when it wasn't returned. Spoke in front of the U.S. Senate in 1969 to support funding for public television. A man who was asking him, Senator John Pastore, rushed into the hearing and unsupportive, but Rogers didn't try to overwhelm him with facts or rhetoric. Instead, he spoke softly and recited lyrics from one of his songs, and talking about how his program helps kids learn how to deal with problems. His tone never changed. Instead of arguing or trying to take over the senator, he stayed calm, and at the end of that meeting, the skeptical senator, who was clearly moved, said, "I think it's wonderful." "You look like you just won $20 million, Rogers said. Rogers didn't win that moment. He got it by force, but he chose peace over pride, which is what Stoicism teaches. As Marcus Aurelius put it, you always have the choice of having no choice. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're smart enough to make one. Choose peace over useless fights. You can value the truth without using it as a weapon. Smart people don't worry about being misread. They worry about arguing over things that won't matter tomorrow. They know that ego may want to say the last word, but knowledge knows when to be quiet. Emotional reaction is one thing that people try to avoid. One of the quickest ways to lose control of yourself and a situation is to, when you reply out of anger, defensiveness, or frustration, you're not really responding with wisdom. You're giving up control to whatever or whoever set you off. Smart people learn this early on. Not every insult needs an answer, and not every thought needs to be expressed. should be done instead of practicing the pause and the quiet moment between stimulus and reaction that makes the impulsive different from the on purpose. This isn't about hiding your feelings. It's about not letting them control how you act. It's normal to feel different emotions, even important, but when you give in to, you stop being able to think straight, you make choices you later wish you hadn't. You say things you can't take back, how you made things worse when they could have been handled gently. It's hard to fix harm that has already been done. That's why smart people putting so much value on staying calm that they won't let someone else's chaos affect them. From my point of view, emotional outbursts are often caused by not being stable inside. When you don't believe in yourself or haven't done the mental work, every little thing seems like a threat to your body. Tense, the mind narrows, and the urge to defend itself. But Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. It tells us that discipline is what makes us strong. Most of the time, the person who is calmest in a room is also the one who has the most. Mark Antony wrote, "If you have power not only over others but also over yourself, are upset about something outside of themselves, the pain isn't from the thing itself but to how you see it." This means that the problem is not the feeling, but your clever people take this to heart, pause, and think about it. Then they carefully choose what to say, not because they are weak, but because they are strong, and in that stillness, they find peace. A rare kind of power that doesn't yell, lash out, or fall apart. What sets the wise apart from the impulsive is a steady, unwavering presence. That's how Stoicism was lived. So let's get straight to the point. Powerful intelligence isn't based on how smart you are or how much you get done. What you pick to do when you want to get away from the drama, noise, and ego traps. Real knowledge is being able to control your emotions and walk away when it's not worth it. If you want to stay calm, it's easier to fight than to blow up to protect your peace like it's your life, because in many ways it is. Hold on to it and let it change how you move through the world. Don't just look at it. Scroll, think, and take back what you own. Send this word to someone you know who needs it. It their way, and maybe you'll help them breathe easier today. Share your thoughts below. If you're on this path with us, please read below with "I choose peace." If the movie spoke to you, please like it, subscribe, and hit that little bell. Let's keep making this space bigger so you don't miss the next dose of Stoic clarity. The group is a place where smart people don't shout, but listen. Where people don't just admire wisdom, but live it. Stay grounded, stay focused, and as always, keep your cool.